Can apparently do a Google Hangout for 8 hours.
That
Fuck,
sounds fun.
fuck wants that. All right.
People who sleep on Google Hangouts.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
You're lonely.
Uh, let's see here. I have a feeling I'm gonna end up watching a video of ourselves somewhere. I'm trying to figure out how to start the. It says it's live.
It is live.
You can apparently do it. I'll be damned. I am the master of the fucking internet. All right. Let's start this for the recording then. Let me just kill this, delete it, and are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Hello and welcome to another podcast of Terror, a production of Galactic Netcasts. This is a show where we review and cover the news for all things terrifying and do some movie reviews. My name is Matt Stein. Today with me is Corey Scott. Corey is an accomplished ballet dancer and street performer. Corey, how are you?
Well, it's mostly street ballet, so it's kind of a combination of the two, mixed with a lot of blowing people for crack.
But sometimes you just need to suck a dick for coke. It's a natural thing that we all do once or twice.
A day.
That got out of hand quickly. I don't even know what to say. You threw me off a little bit, but
we threatened that this was going to have the explicit tag.
Yeah, and it did, and we really lived up to that in the first 50 seconds. We didn't even hit a minute, and we already went there. I'm proud of us.
I don't have the stamina like I used to as a kid, so it's going to go quick.
I'm done. This week we watched a movie called Always Watching, a Marble Hornets story, which was a dumb title. They could have taken out a Marble Hornets story because, in my opinion, it had nothing to do with anything. Maybe you felt differently?
Well, I didn't know anything about Marble Hornets going in, so seeing the title after the fact, I started exploring why the hell did they call this a Marble Hornets story, and started following the backstory of these people on the web. And basically, this is a web thing that they did for a while first, and then they made a full feature film out of it. So I think it's a callback for people who are fans of the stuff before to see the finalized movie version of what they've been watching forever long.
Oh, see, and you clearly did far more internet research about this movie than I did. I basically watched it and called it good, which good on you.
Like I said, I go quick, so internet porn only lasts for a couple minutes for me tops.
All you got to do, you find a good video, you skip to that portion that you want to watch, you fire it off, 45 seconds, you're back to cooking dinner.
That's true.
This movie had a bunch of people, a bunch of unknown people, and then one guy that I've seen in other things.
I recognize most of the people in this. Yeah, so we can. I'm sure we're going to just spoil the hell out of this. Doug Jones plays the horror creature in this, known as the Operator. Although you recognized him as the Slender Man, which has got a lot of background. We'll get into that. The main guy who played Milo, I've seen in several things, going back to as far as Jason versus Freddy. He was sort of the nerdy guy in that.
I've seen him in other things. I forgot he was in that movie, though.
Yeah, he was in Fanboys. He was in The Girl Next Door. My wife really liked him in this movie called Almost Friend, or something like Friends. He was the younger brother of this guy, and they used to just beat up on each other all the time. That's the whole movie, is his character just beating up on his brother while his brother's trying to get back with this girl that he liked in high school but never saw him as anything more than a friend. Alexandra Breckenridge, who is the lead in this, she was on the latest season of Walking Dead.
Oh, see, I don't watch that show.
And she was also in the first season as the super hot French maid in American Horror Story.
That's all right. Yeah.
And then the other reporter guy that's with them was on the sitcom Manhattan Love Story that was out for about 3 episodes last season. So I recognized way too many people from this, which didn't really take anything away from the movie, but it was just kind of like, oh yeah, I know who that is.
Wow, that guy's Milo's real name is Chris Marquette.
Yep.
Never heard the name before. Given the amount of times I've seen him, I really felt I should know his name a little better.
Yeah. And Doug Jones is just one of those guys who's always playing somebody in makeup. You hardly ever get to see him as himself, but he played the body of Abe Sapien in the Hellboy movies, and then he actually got to voice the character in the sequel when Niles wasn't there anymore, and he's done a lot of other stuff.
What I want to know is why they called Slenderman the operator.
Maybe to avoid spoilers. Although then you're calling it, Marble Hornet story, which if you know Marble Hornets, you kind of know what you're getting in that.
Well,
maybe he's another take on it.
The movie poster is essentially Slenderman. It's just like a faceless guy in a suit.
Yeah. Reminded me a lot of the gentleman from the Hush episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, man. Right over
Never seen Buffy?
Well, I watched it all, but I watched it all because I was dating a girl, and the only way to have sex with her was to watch Buffy, so that's why I watched Buffy. I retained minimal knowledge of that TV show.
Of the show, Hush is probably one of the very best, if not the best episodes. It's up there with the musical, although some people found the musical a turnoff. And then they had an episode that had no soundtrack at all because it was just so starkly dark, relating to the death of one of the main characters' relatives. That's as far as I'll go on that. But Hush is amazing because nobody can speak in the episode. And there's these creatures kind of floating around called the Gentlemen. And then they have these kind of houndish guys that are jumping around with them on all fours in straitjackets. It's very creepy. Similar in tone to what the Slender Man brings you.
Yeah, a bunch of them. I guess for those who are not familiar, probably do a little background on the movie itself. I have a habit of just talking. It came out recently. It came out on video on demand on April 7th. And a limited theatrical release on May 15th, which I always think it's weird when a movie comes out on demand before the theatrical release, but what do I know? I'm just some asshole that watches movies. IMDb gave it a 5.1 out of 10, and Rotten Tomatoes gave it 21%.
Yeah, my wife is part of these horror, basically message boards relating to a online trivia game. She is the top-rated horror trivia player in California, I think, on her list. And so all these people kind of associate with each other. She told them what she was watching. They were like, oh, that movie's a piece of shit. But they said that about most movies. And she was more into this one. She was more freaked out by this one, I think, than what they probably would have given her credit for.
The scares in this one, like, there was a lot of build-up to a lot of nothing at points, which I think helped. Because it's like there's scenes in which it's like just a dark room and you're expecting something to jump out. You're expecting a loud noise. And for like the first half of the movie, it never happens, which is kind of cool. It was a new take on the beat to shit already, like, found footage handheld cam movies, which drove me nuts. But at least in this one, they gave a reason as to why that there was a camera everywhere, and that I liked.
Yeah, I agree. That was my thing too. Is I'm sitting there watching this, I'm going, Jesus Christ, we're going to watch this whole thing and try to get past the conceit that someone's going to run around holding a camera all the time, that they're being chased by somebody. No, they give a very specific reason as to why they're doing it in this, and it made a lot more sense watching it. There's still those points like, okay, you've got the camera, but you're mostly aiming it at your feet when you're walking. That doesn't quite work as well. It also plays off of what a lot of horror movies have, which is that peripheral action of, like, you almost see something, or it takes some extra effort to actually notice that someone is stalking you or coming up behind you. And that was a lot of what this was, is that we have a tendency in my house to watch the TV all the time without really fully paying attention to what's on. And this is a movie that you start to, once you get drawn into it, you keep paying attention to it because you want to see those spots where what the operator, I guess is we're going to call him, where he shows up in the film. You have to be looking for him. So it makes you want to watch it. And you're always looking like, did I just see him? Did I not just see him? And if it'd been more convenient, because we're running it through Amazon streaming, I might have paused and stepped back more, but for the most part, we just wanted to kind of go along with the story.
Which I completely agree with. There was a number of times where, like you said, you once the operator starts becoming more of the story instead of just like I I read a good amount of creepypastas, so I'm familiar with Slenderman for the most part, but I didn't go balls deep and watch the other movies and play the video games and things of that nature. But I'm familiar with how like he's just kind of always off in the background. So going into it, I wasn't quite sure how they were going to present it. But once they kind of say like, yeah, this guy is, I only see him in the camera and all this other weird shit. It's like now you're trying to figure out like when's he going to show up and where's he going to do and what's going to happen. And it was kind of a it was I don't know. It was cool. It was different.
Yeah, it was definitely different. And I have this habit of going fully in on my paranoia. I spent a summer out here in Northern California before I moved out here working at a camp. And out in the camp in the woods at night, it gets incredibly foggy. I was out surrounded by redwoods up in Fort Bragg. And so I would play the soundtrack to Twin Peaks the entire time that I was in this cabin out there in the woods. And I would look out the steamy window and think I'd see Bob or just anything having to do with the Black Lodge. So I like to do these things. And I'm watching this guy put cameras up in his room, which is facing different rooms, and playing it and displaying it on the wall and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I would totally do this. If I had the equipment and the time, I would do this now and just have things kind of playing over me all the time to do anytime I hear a noise, like try to pinpoint what that noise is, knowing I'm just making it worse for myself.
And that's the thing, you feed into your own paranoia doing shit like that. Like I have a camera over my front door and in my living room. And at one point I had one over my back door, but I switched cameras and that's a different conversation. But I will hear sounds and the first thing I do is check the camera on my phone. And then I sit and stare at it and I'm like, oh, did I fucking see something? Like, am I going to have to pull out a gun and like murder someone in my house right now? If I didn't have a camera, I would probably just be like, oh, it's some shit. It's an animal. It's something or other. And just go back to
squeaking. Yeah. House is settling, all those kinds of things that you accept when you don't have to think too hard about it. When you have the ability to think about it all the time. You're right. If I had a camera that I could check through the internet, I would probably be looking at that all day long and just freaking out anytime a shadow passes across a window.
You earlier mentioned fogginess, California, hotter than hell. It made me think if there's a camp somewhere out in California that like you can pay and you get an overnight experience of essentially living in a slasher movie. I think if someone were to do that, it would be the same thing. You would live inside of your own head and get so freaked out by the fact that like eventually someone's going to show up and try and fucking murder me that you would scare the shit out of yourself even if nothing ever happened. Like I could get 10 assholes and say, give me $500, we're going to live in a slasher movie and never do a thing. And they would be terrified because they would be expecting it the whole time.
Yeah, it'd become like Saw. It would be a couple people in a room and them just getting to the point where they're going to wind up killing each other just so that they make sure that they're the ones that come out of it alive, even if there was nothing against them.
Yeah, the scariest thing you could do to someone is let them live inside their own head.
Yep.
I think I just made $1 million.
Absolutely.
Trademark CM.
Especially, I mean, these days you'd have to take people's phones away. That's the biggest thing. Not even them making calls, but just that instant, well, I can just ignore the world by looking at this 4-inch screen for a while.
That's true. And I know at the camp in California, that's one of the things you have to do is give up your phone, which I completely agree. And I mean, now, even when we would go to haunted houses when I was a teenager, so you're talking 10, 15 years ago or whatever.
Ouch.
Sorry, buddy. There was you'd get stuck in those dark mazes and you had no way to get out because you didn't have a cell phone. Now people can just pull out a phone and flashlight and find their way, and it's like you're paying for an experience.
Right.
The shit scared out of you and you're ruining it because you're a asshole.
Ruining for yourself and for other people. It's like, why even spend the money to go in there at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. We got pretty far off topic there.
Yeah. But yeah, so the other thing about this is that it's a couple stories in one. We're finding out about Milo and the reporters that are going in, but they start out going into these houses that have been abandoned, and that's where they find tapes underneath the stairway that relates to the other story that is this other couple, and Milo's going through those tapes, and that is what kind of pulls him in and starts involving him things with the operator. And then there's even another couple that are at the very beginning and sort of the prologue to the film.
Yeah, which
that they show.
Was weird that it kind of started out and then never went back and explained that couple, other than it was just how the movie was started. I mean, I kind of thought that they would end up being the family whose the house they were at and all that, but it never comes full circle. And even at the end, it just kind of drops off with the other people who buy the camera. But something else I wanted to say in terms of, because obviously there's a portion of the movie in which Milo is holding a camera before he finds out that the only way to see the operator is through the camera, and it turns out that he's just a fucking creeper and likes to follow around the hot chick in the movie.
Yep.
And that's why he has a camera outside of his real job, which is a cameraman for a news station, which also works to his favor. But that, I mean, that plays into the movie towards the end when they on the run-ish, trying to find the family. And
yeah, there are a couple of points in the movie where they give you a little bit of a hint of things that happen, but they don't really show them internally to the film. It's an expectation. You have to figure out what they're talking about. So like the girl that Milo is obsessed over, when they first meet at a party at the beginning, and they apparently hook up.
Spoiler alert, they bang in a bath, dirty.
But not on screen, so screw you. Thanks for that. But he becomes obsessed with her. She apparently has some substance abuse problems that they address later on, but just kind of get over it. There's a point where she leaves the hotel room that they're all in hiding out at, and obviously goes and gets wasted somewhere and comes back. But at that point in time, we haven't really been even informed that she has an abuse problem. It just sort of gets gilded in a little bit. And then the stuff with the other reporter guy who comes to town and having anger issues, we find about that kind of down the road. We don't really get a clear understanding as to what that entailed and why it happened. And same with this other family. How did they get first involved with this situation with this creature? And was it passed along? That's what I'm kind of thinking, is that other couple makes me think they could come before, they could be coming after. And it sort of becomes more like The Ring, or maybe It Follows, where there's something that you could track this going back further and further. And if they kept making these movies, we would get prequels and sequels, and maybe somewhere down the line get the whole story, kind of like with Paranormal Activity or Insidious.
If this made enough money, there would be sequels up the ass.
And who knows how much money it has to make when it's really, it looks like it's filmed on the cheap and mostly direct to video.
Yeah, just a dump truck full of money, I'm sure, is enough.
Yeah.
I assume that the operators kind of passed along person to person because they get marked, and then however he chooses to end you, which is kind of weird. How it's like all of a sudden, like why does he go from point A of just being in the background to point B, just straight up killing you and the people around you? Like it just seems to escalate very quickly. He's just there, and then he interacts with you, and you start killing everybody.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is that if you follow the storyline of the couple that they're watching in the videos, and their kid, is there's a specific order. The dad gets marked on the shoulder like Milo does. The daughter gets marked on the stomach like the other reporter guy does. And then the wife finally gets marked on the wrist, like Alexandra Breckenridge's character does. But the way that the family ends in their subplot versus how the main story finishes in theirs is very different. I mean, it does come down to Milo trying to kill the other two, but not in the same way. He realizes what's going to happen, and he decides to kill himself. And then essentially the Slender Man doesn't take no for an answer, which is not in how the dad did it. The dad gets knocked down the stairs after he kills a little girl and is essentially dead because the mom burns the whole place to the ground and gets away mostly alive.
Yeah, well, she's just fucking crazy for the rest of her life, which I don't know if I would call that getting away at all. And I don't know if she chose to. They never really touch on why she's crazy, other than the fact that she found her daughter suffocated by her husband and then had to kill her husband and then burn the house down. I venture a guess that might fuck someone up a little bit in the head. But she seems pretty normal when they're talking to her, other than when they go into her little padded room. She's singing creepily to herself, but she seemed lucid and very with it. And when she notices that the girl is marked, she freaks out. And I think they tried to play the shock factor that half of her face is burnt when they catch her in there and all that too, which seemed kind of.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was shocked. Oh, she was in a fire. She survived. We're seeing her from the back with a mirror that's only showing part of her face. I think we know what's going to happen here.
I feel like it almost would have worked better had they just left her unseen, like just leave her hair over her face. Like,
yeah,
she's so badly burnt that we couldn't show her. Because when they talk about it, they said, the dad and the daughter were pretty much burnt toast by the time we found her. But this lady was, you watch the video of her sitting in the living room chair while the house is burning down around her.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me that all that happened was like half of her face was a little like Freddy burnt.
Yeah, how did they know to get her out, and how did they bring her out of there?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, it's just, I don't know. You get nitpicky when you start to dissect movies like that. But all in all, I mean, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I will never watch this movie again. If they made a sequel, I would watch it. But I mean, it wasn't a complete waste of my time.
No, it was pretty good for what it was supposed to be. I mean, I think it utilized the Slender Man character well. I think it utilized the main characters as best as it could. The acting wasn't strong in it, but what you're watching it for isn't for strong acting. You're watching it for the creature effect. You're watching it to kind of figure out why this guy is there and how he's there and what's he going to do. And so I think he, being the thing that would continue on, is compelling enough. You're right. I would watch a sequel of this. We actually bought the movie because it was $1 more to buy it versus rent it. So we just said to hell with it.
Yeah.
I think it's worth it because I think it's one of those things I'm going to come home. My wife's going to be watching over and over again in the afternoons.
It's not a regrettable purchase, and like we talked about, there's probably a lot of instances where the operator shows up and you don't even know he's there because they don't go back and point it out.
Yeah, it'd be like playing a video game trying to get all the trophies. You know, yeah. It's watching the movie and going, okay, spot him here, spot him here, spot him here.
Yeah, that is a reference that I understand. Yeah, you done good. When I was trying to like find interesting stuff about this movie, there's nothing. Like, there's no controversy. Like, no one was pissed off. They didn't have to snort crack off of a hooker to get enough money. Like, it kind of pissed me off. But like we were talking about earlier, the whole Slender thing, it's been going on for a long time. Like, there's a shit ton of creepypastas, fan movies, video games, stories, the whole 9 yards. There was actually, and shame on me for not actually looking up, but there in recent news around Wisconsin, there's 2 teenage girls, I believe, young teenage girls, are on trial because they murdered a girl and blamed it on Slenderman, saying like, "Oh, he took me over," which I didn't know that's how Slender ended you, that he like took over your body and you killed people around you. Once again, I didn't do a ton of research on Slenderman. I just knew that he followed people around, and I figured you just die. It was like The Ring. Your face gets contorted and you're just dead. So this is apparently something that like this will now become the next scapegoat. You know, in mid-90s, it was Marilyn Manson. That's why you killed people. Now it's Slenderman. That's why you kill people. It was
Ozzy Osbourne when I was a kid. It's definitely been video games throughout our lifetimes. There is the stories on Newsweek, the girls who tried to kill for Slenderman. I just found the article. So that is kind of compelling, is the fact that it's made it outside of just a mythology online to something that is actually being used as an excuse for crimes. But it's like murdering somebody and blaming it on Bloody Mary because you killed somebody in the bathroom in the dark.
I'm sure that's next. Don't give anyone any idiots.
That may have actually happened a long time before. I don't know. I would have to look it up. Bloody Mary's been around at least since I was a kid in the 70s.
Oh, yeah. When I was a kid in the 90s, it was there too. Sorry,
it wasn't Candyman?
Well, Candyman, Bloody Mary, all that stuff. I mean, I was a kid before cell phones were popular, so I still had to go outside and play. So,
yeah.
Much as you guys want to hate on how young I am, I still was a proper child. I did not have I remember when cell phones came out with this color screens and Snake was in color. That was the shit. So, I remember all of that. Uh, yeah, but like you said, I mean, there's got to be a new scapegoat per se, and this is what they're blaming it on now. Maybe they're want to use that as an excuse. Maybe get off as plead insanity. Maybe they really thought that this happened. I don't know. I mean, kids do dumb shit. Like
It's the same thing like I was saying about exploring your paranoia. You can follow these things down the rabbit hole so far. There is 58 episodes at least of this Marble Hornets from Clear Lakes 44 on YouTube. And I guess that's just the first season. And then there's videos by this other company called Night Watch that are about an hour long to explain each season of Marble Hornets. I think there's about 3 of those. So you can keep going further and further into this. And if you let yourself become obsessed over it, like when the Blair Witch came out, we saw the Blair Witch. We downloaded it, or a friend downloaded it the night before it was released in the theater. So a bunch of friends of mine and I were at my apartment. We watched this movie not realizing that it wasn't a real thing. We thought it was a documentary that we were watching about what the movie was going to be based on. So we're watching this thinking this is all realistic. All had to go to bed that night and try to deal with the horrific things that we saw in this film. With the stuff that they published online and stuff to go along with the movie, it was very easy to believe that this was something that was true. And then someone made a fake documentary about it until you kind of realized it later on. That was a good pitch for a movie at that point in time. But with stuff on the internet, there is no truth. There is no real versus not real, because what one person knows is fake, another person believes absolutely 100% in. That's why we have all these theories about 9/11 and all these theories about birthers and stuff. It's just, it sounds ridiculous to some of us, and to other people, it's like, no, that's 100%. That's just the way it is. That's a fact. That's scary, but that kind of makes sense that someone could take something that is seemingly so fictitious and so obviously fictitious and running with it and saying, no, we did this because someone else possessed us. A devil possession goes back to the beginning of time, essentially. Why wouldn't it be possession by a fictional character from the internet?
It can be whatever you want it to be. Like I said before, you just let people get in their own head. You can make yourself crazy by being inside your own head too much.
Yeah.
You want to believe that someone's following you around, you want to believe, then you're going to eventually murder your friends. End up in Newsweek.
It's true. And if you do something and you can't fathom why you did it yourself, then you look for the scapegoat. You look for something else to blame. There's been plenty of things I've done, especially when I was a kid, that I was just like, why the hell did I do that? You know, I look at myself now, I'm like, how did I ever think that was okay to do? And it doesn't make sense, you know, hormones.
Yeah, I've done some dumb shit in my day. We all do, though. Yeah, that's why you're young, and now you're old and crusty, and you just kind of move on.
Yep, had to change my name a couple of times.
Well, things are starting to get weird now. So, if you had to give this movie 1 to 5 dead hookers, how many dead hookers would you give it?
I give it a 3. For the film itself, it's kind of between a 2 and a 3. But it's elevated at the very least by the character, by the mythology behind it. And I think the more that I explore it, by watching the Marble Hornet stuff, by looking at other stuff on Slenderman, by reading creepypasta, I think the more interested I am in it. I like creature films. I like things that build a story that are bigger than just the movie that you watched. So I like Freddy Krueger and I like Jeepers Creepers and that kind of stuff. This to me seems like it's very interesting. If I was just watching the movie by itself, it would probably be lower. But when you take in everything that went into it, an account outside of it, it's average. It's average to just above average, maybe.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I would give it 2 dead hookers, based pretty much on what you said, and I like it's the first Slender Man movie I've watched. I'm sure there are other ones that aren't fan fiction, but it's kind of the first well done one that I've succumbed to watching. That's about it. Do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I think that this was a good choice for the first film. I think it works because it's It's not something that a lot of people know about or have heard of. Even if they've heard of the Slender Man, they probably haven't heard of this movie yet. And I think it suits towards what we're probably going to want to explore more on these shows, is this kind of like not necessarily the most mainstream horror movie in the world, although we'll do a couple of those too.
Yeah,
but we go for the weird stuff.
Yeah, you're gonna watch some garbage doing this show.
I'm good with that.
I like bad movies, and I like to bring people down with me. So prepare your tits, because it's about to go down.
Yeah, I told you my wife has been creating a list with her horror friends. She thinks like, oh no, this is what you have to watch, and then you have to watch this, and you have to watch this. And some of them are kids, and some of them think the scariest movies in the world are like the recent stuff that I don't get at all. My wife's scariest movie is Signs, as strange as that is, because aliens freak her ass out. But
I actually saw a preview for a movie called The Visit that I probably were going to end up doing. It's about some kids. It's an M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong movie.
Oh, that's right.
Their grandparents apparently lose their shit after like 9 p.m., which is a different take on old people. So I'm kind of interested in it. But
I wonder how water is going to factor into this one.
Let's not talk about that. I had forgotten about his obsession with water up until recently. Although he did he produced the Wayward Pines, and there wasn't really a water twist in that movie.
No, that's true.
TV show, I should say. But that was also completely written by someone else, and he was just there.
He's just there.
Yes.
Still trying to make up for Avatar.
God, shut up. You can find our shows by going to gncasts.com. We're also on iTunes. We got approved for that, and Stitcher. I found out we got me in Stitcher too. So slowly but surely, we're going to take over everybody and eventually not be able to be within 100 feet of a school. So if you like what you hear, please leave a 5-star review. Tell your friends and your family. Your mom can send us cookies. I like cookies. I like turkey recipes.
I like cookies.
Yeah. Have your mom bake us cookies, or your wife, depending on your age. Outside of the iTunes feedback, we would prefer if you went to. You can email. I'm so tired right now. I'm sorry. You can leave us
email at galacticnetcast.com.
Yes.
Or no, galacticnetcast@gmail.com. There we go.
Or a voice message at galacticnetcast.com. You can also listen to the other shows. I'm also on Weird World Weekly with Dave, and then sometimes Corey and I end up on Sci-Fi Geeks Club. There's Adventure Party that Brad does. There's a whole bunch of stuff for everybody. So if you're first finding out about Galactic Netcast because of the addition of a horror podcast and you're kind of a nerd on the side, like I am, I love horror, but I'm a nerd on the side. There's something for everyone there. Maybe if I ask Dave nicely, we'll end up getting like a cooking show. We have a cooking show on the network, Dave. Maybe
cooking show would be fun.
Yeah. We can get some like super buff guy, Italian, cooking without a shirt on.
Just thank you for disqualifying us both right off the bat.
Well, but the thing is you never want to eat food. You want your cook to be fat. Obviously he's eating. Also, you can get involved in our community by joining the Galactic Collective. There's a link on galacticnetcasts.com to do so. There's also a Patreon account if you want to give us a quarter of your money, like the Catholic Church requires. You can do things like you could pay me so I can stop working. I'm sure Corey also wants to stop working. Brad probably doesn't want to go to work anymore. So we'll take your money so we don't have to work. We can just keep making podcasts. We can do shows, and you can enjoy our content. Outside of that, that's it for me. Corey, do you have anything you'd like to say to kind of round out the night?
No, man. I'm just very excited to finally have gotten on this. When we started talking about this a few months ago, I was just, I'm going to do a horror podcast. And my wife was like, I think I actually love you now. And that's almost a win. So...
sometimes it's the little things in life. Like Amazon has a sale. I purchase a mixer, and now we do a podcast. It's literally how that went down.
Yep. Nice that we put tons of thought and money into it.
I was at work one day, and I'm like, okay. I clicked order. 2 days later, it showed up. Here we are. Well, thank you very much, Corey, for your time.
Thank you. And hey, anybody, definitely email the network and let us know movies that you think that we should watch and any kind of news and stuff. You can check out the Collective Netcast also on Facebook and hit us up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I use the internet. I have a Twitter at Matt the Lifeguard. My Instagram is the same. If you want to look at my record collection, Corey, you use the internet ever?
I'm mostly through Facebook these days. I do have a Twitter account at Captain Temerity, and I will circle the drain every once in a while on that. Mostly Facebook is where I'm at, but Galactic Netcast's Facebook page is probably the easiest way to get a hold of both of us.
And you can find out where to send the cookies by going to the Galactic Netcast Facebook page.
I like oatmeal without raisin.
Oh, see, I like oatmeal with raisin. I also like chocolate with oatmeal.
Yeah, chocolate chip oatmeal is the way to go.
I like cookies.
God. I like cookies that'll make your foot fall off.
Now I'm hungry. All right.
All right. Let's go bake.
Yeah, right. Thank you for your time. We look forward to the next episode with you, Corey, and I look forward to hearing from everybody. So you have yourself a terrific night out there in Radio Land.
Thanks, everybody.